The message came through every human communication channel at the same time. It was not a request. It was a demand. The Galactic Council wanted to speak with humanity. And they wanted to speak now. Tay Kang read the message 3 times before he put down his tablet. He was sitting in his small office on Earth, drinking coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Outside his window, the city of Seoul moved with its usual energy. People walked to work. Cars filled the streets. Children went to school. None of them knew that an alien government had just summoned their entire species to answer for crimes they did not understand. Tay was 62 years old. He had gray hair and tired eyes. But his mind was still sharp. He had spent 30 years as a diplomat, solving problems between nations that hated each other. When humanity made first contact with alien life 5 years ago, the government asked him to become their voice to the stars. He had accepted, knowing it would be the hardest job of his life. He picked up his phone and called Captain Yuna Park. Yuna answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, but Tay could hear the tension underneath. She had received the same message. "They want us at Station Korath in 3 days, Yuna said. "That is deep in Council space. It would take our fastest ships a week to get there." "They know that," Tay said. "They are testing us already. They want to see if we will beg for more time. Will we?" Tay smiled, though there was no happiness in it. "No. We will arrive on time. Prepare the eternal dawn." There was a pause on the other end. "Sir, are you sure? If we bring the dawn, they will see what we have. We have kept it hidden for 5 years." "I know," Tay said. "But I think it is time they learned who they are dealing with." 2 days later, Tay stood in the bridge of the HSS Eternal Dawn. The ship was enormous. It stretched 30 kilometers from front to back, and its weapons could destroy entire fleets. Humanity had built it in secret, using technology they had found in ancient ruins on Mars. The ruins belonged to a species that had died millions of years ago. But their knowledge survived. Humanity had learned from it. They had grown strong in the shadows while the galaxy thought they were weak. Commander Hana Lee walked up beside Tay. She was young, only 35, but she was one of the best officers in the human fleet. Her black hair was tied back, and her uniform was perfect. She carried herself like someone who had seen battle and won. "We will arrive at Station Korath in 6 hours, Hana said. "The fold space drive is working perfectly." Tay nodded. The fold space drive was another gift from the ancient ruins. It let them travel faster than any other species in the galaxy. The Council did not know about it. They thought humans still used slow engines that took weeks to cross between stars. "Keep the ship hidden until I give the signal," Tay said. "I want to see their faces when they understand." Hana smiled. It was a cold smile, the kind soldiers gave before a fight. "Yes, sir." 6 hours later, Tay walked alone through the halls of Station Korath. The station was huge, built to hold thousands of alien diplomats and their staff. It floated in empty space, far from any planet, a neutral ground where the great powers of the galaxy came to talk instead of fight. Tay wore simple clothes. A dark suit, white shirt, no medals or symbols of rank. He wanted to look ordinary. He wanted them to underestimate him. The aliens around him did exactly that. They looked at him with curiosity, amusement, or disgust. He was the only human on the station. His species was young, barely 1,000 years into space travel by their count. They did not know about the ancient technology. They did not know about the ships humanity had built in secret. To them, Tay was just a representative of a small, weak species that had made a mistake. He reached the great chamber and stopped at the entrance. The room was massive. It could hold 10,000 beings, and today it was nearly full. Representatives from every major species sat in curved rows that rose toward the ceiling. At the center was a raised platform where the council's leaders sat. Tay walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Every eye watched him. Speaker Voran stood at the center of the platform. He was tall, almost 3 meters, with blue skin and 4 arms. His species, the Veloxi, had ruled the council for centuries. They were proud, powerful, and absolutely certain of their place at the top. Human, Vorin said. His voice filled the chamber. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your crimes. Your species has expanded into neutral space. Without permission, you have built colonies on worlds that do not belong to you. You have ignored our warnings and our laws. Tay stopped at the edge of the platform. He looked up at Vorin without fear. Respected speaker, Tay said. His voice was quiet, but the chamber's systems carried it to every ear. Humanity does not recognize these accusations. We have built on empty worlds that no one claimed. We have harmed no one. Vorin made a sound that might have been a laugh. You do not recognize our authority? You are a young species. You have no fleet. You have no power. You exist because we allow it. Tay did not react. He kept his face calm and his voice steady. We have always wanted peace, Tay said. We did not come to the stars looking for war. We came looking for friends, for knowledge, for a place in this great community. But we will not bow to threats. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and laughed. Some called for punishment. Others demanded humanity be taught a lesson they would never forget. Vorin raised his forearms, and the room fell silent. You speak bravely for someone who stands alone, Vorin said. Where is your fleet, human? Where are your ships? We have watched your space. We have counted your vessels. You have nothing that could challenge even our smallest patrol. Tay smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. But Vorin saw it. Something in the speaker's eyes changed. For the first time, there was doubt. Respected speaker, Tay said, I would like to show you something. With your permission, of course. Vorin stared at him for a long moment. The doubt grew stronger, but pride pushed it away. What could one human possibly show that would matter? Show us, Vorin said. Let us see what humanity brings to this chamber. Tay reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a single button, and everything changed. The device in Tay's hand was small, no bigger than his thumb. It looked like nothing special, just a piece of metal with a single button. But when he pressed it, a signal traveled across space faster than light. It reached the HSS Eternal Dawn in less than a second. Commander Hana Lee received the signal on the bridge. She had been waiting for hours, her crew ready at their stations. The great ship hung in the darkness, hidden by technology that bent light around its hull. To any scanner, the Eternal Dawn was invisible. It did not exist. Signal received, one of her officers said. Ambassador Kang is ready. Hana stood from her chair. She walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Station Koreth was visible in the distance, a bright point of light surrounded by the ships of 100 different species. Drop the cloak, Hana said. Let them see us. The order traveled through the ship. Systems that had kept them hidden for days powered down. The light that had bent around them straightened. And suddenly, the Eternal Dawn existed. Back in the Great Chamber, the first sign that something was wrong came from the station itself. Warning lights flashed red across every wall. Alarms screamed through the air. The aliens in the chamber stopped shouting and looked around in confusion. What is happening? Vorin demanded. He turned to his assistants, his forearms waving with anger. Report! A young Veloxi ran up to the platform, his face pale with fear. He carried a tablet that shook in his hands. Speaker, the assistant said. A ship has appeared. It appeared from nothing. Our sensors say it was not there. And then it was. What kind of ship? Vorin asked. Is it human? How big is it? The assistant looked at his tablet. Then he looked at Vorin. Then he looked at the tablet again, as if hoping the numbers would change. It is 30 kilometers long, Speaker. It has more weapons than our entire defense fleet. Our computers cannot even count them all. Quote, the chamber fell completely silent. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. They simply stared at the assistant, as if he had spoken in a language they could not understand. 30 kilometers. That was impossible. The largest ship the Council had ever built was 8 kilometers, and it had taken 3 species working together for 50 years to complete it. 30 kilometers was not a ship, it was a moon. It was a weapon that should not exist. Tay stood in the center of it all, his face calm. He watched the aliens around him as understanding slowly filled their eyes. They had thought humanity was weak. They had thought humans had no power. They were learning how wrong they had been. Would the Council like to see it? Tay asked. His voice was quiet, but in the silence, everyone heard him. I can put the image on your screens. No one answered. No one could. Vorin opened his mouth, but no words came out. Tay pressed another button on his device. The great screens that lined the chamber walls flickered. They had been showing the Council's symbol, a ring of stars around a peaceful planet. Now they showed something else. The HSS Eternal Dawn filled every screen. It was black, darker than the space around it, as if it swallowed light instead of reflecting it. Its shape was long and sharp, like a blade made for cutting through everything in its path. Along its sides, weapons pointed in every direction. Cannons the size of buildings, missile bays that could hold thousands of warheads, energy collectors that glowed with blue fire, and at the front, carved into the hull in letters that burned with white light, was its name, Eternal Dawn. A promise and a warning in 2 simple words. The chamber remained silent. Aliens who had been shouting for humanity's punishment now stared at the screens with wide eyes. Some of them were shaking, others had gone pale, their skin losing color as fear took hold. Vorin found his voice at last. This is impossible. You cannot have built this. Your species is too young. Your technology is too primitive. Tay turned to face the speaker. He did not smile now. His face was serious, and his eyes were hard. Speaker Vorin, Tay said. Humanity has always known that the galaxy is dangerous. We watched the skies for centuries, wondering if something would come from the stars to destroy us. When we finally reached space, we did not stop watching. We prepared. Prepared? Vorin repeated. Prepared for what? For this, Tay said. For the day when someone would threaten us. For the day when we would need to show that we are not prey. We hoped that day would never come. We hoped we would find friends among the stars. But we knew better than to trust hope alone. He gestured at the screens, at the massive ship that hung in space like a sleeping giant. The Eternal Dawn is not our only ship, Tay continued. It is not even our largest. It is simply the one we brought today. A patrol vessel, we call it. Something we send to watch our borders and keep our people safe. The words hit the chamber like physical blows. A patrol vessel. The most terrifying ship any of them had ever seen. And humans called it a patrol vessel. What did their warships look like? What did their battle fleets hold? A delegate from a species Tay did not recognize stood up in the crowd. He was short and covered in brown fur, with small eyes that blinked rapidly. You are lying, the delegate said. His voice was high and thin with fear. This must be a trick. Your species has been in space for only 500 of your years. You cannot have built something like this. This, I weigh, Tay looked at him calmly. You are correct that we have been traveling space for 500 years. But we have been building for much longer. We found things, you see, old things, things left behind by species that came before any of us. The chamber erupted in whispers. Ancient technology, precursor races. Every species in the galaxy had stories about them, civilizations that had risen and fallen millions of years ago, leaving behind ruins and mysteries. Some of that technology had been found over the centuries, small pieces, broken fragments, but nothing like what the human was describing. You found precursor technology? Vorin asked. His voice had changed. The anger was gone. Now there was only caution, mixed with something that might have been respect. We found some, Tay said. On a planet in our own system. A world we call Mars. The ruins were old. Millions of years old. But some of the knowledge survived. We learned from it. We grew. He paused, letting the words sink in. We did not share this with the galaxy, Tay continued. We were afraid. We knew that some species would try to take what we had found. We knew that others would see us as a threat. So, we stayed quiet. We built in secret. We watched and waited. And now? Vorin asked. Why show us now? Tay looked at the speaker. His eyes were tired but determined. Because you forced us to, Tay said. You called us here to punish us for building homes on empty worlds. You threatened us with war. You thought we would beg for mercy. But humanity does not beg. We never have. We simply wanted you to understand what war with us would mean. He spread his hands, a gesture of openness. We do not want to fight. We have never wanted to fight. But we are ready to, if we must. The choice belongs to the Council now. Do you want war with humanity? Or do you want peace? The question hung in the air like smoke after a fire. No one answered. No one knew what to say. The galaxy had just changed, and they were still trying to understand what that meant. On the screens, the eternal dawn waited. Patient. Silent. Ready. The silence in the great chamber lasted for what felt like hours. In truth, it was only a few minutes. But those minutes stretched like years as every being in the room tried to understand what had just happened. Speaker Vorin was the first to move. He turned away from the screens and looked at Tay with new eyes. The human stood alone on the floor below, small and fragile compared to the Veloxy leader. But size meant nothing now. The ship on the screens had changed everything. You have given us much to think about, Vorin said slowly. This council will need time to discuss what we have seen. Of course, Tay said. We expected nothing less. Take all the time you need. A counselor from the back of the chamber stood up. He was a Dreth, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. His skin was gray and cracked with age, and his eyes glowed with faint orange light. The Dreth had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched species come and go, like waves on a beach. Nothing surprised them anymore. Until today. Human, the old Dreth said. His voice was like dry leaves scraping across stone. I have a question. Can? Tay turned to face him. Please ask. Your species has had this power for how long? Years? Decades? We began building Sirius vessels about 200 years ago, Tay said. The Eternal Dawn was completed 50 years ago. The Dreth nodded slowly. 50 years. And in all that time, you never used it. You never conquered. You never took. Why? The question seemed to confuse some of the other delegates. They were used to a simple truth. Power existed to be used. If you had weapons, you used them to take what you wanted. That was how the galaxy worked. That was how it had always worked. Tay considered his answer carefully. This was important. This was the moment that would shape how the galaxy saw humanity for generations to come. Because that is not who we are, Tay said finally. We built these ships to protect ourselves, not to attack others. We wanted safety, not empire. When we found the ancient technology, we could have used it to conquer. We knew that. Some of our people wanted exactly that. But we chose a different path. A different path, the Dreth repeated. What path? The path of patience, Tay said. We decided to wait. To watch. To learn about the galaxy before we revealed ourselves. We wanted to know if there was a place for us here. We wanted to know if we could find friends instead of enemies. He paused, looking around the chamber at the thousands of alien faces watching him. We have been watching for 200 years, Tay continued. We have seen wars. We have seen cruelty. We have seen species destroy each other over small pieces of territory. But we have also seen kindness. We have seen cooperation. We have seen beings from different worlds work together to build something better. His voice grew stronger, filling the chamber. That is why we came to the stars openly 5 years ago. We hoped that if we approached peacefully, we would be welcomed peacefully. We showed you our small ships, our simple colonies, our open hearts. We wanted to join your community as equals, not as conquerors. And instead, we threatened you, Vorin said quietly. His forearms hung at his sides, all the fight gone from his posture. We saw your weakness and tried to take advantage of it. Yes, Tay said simply. You did. The chamber was quiet again. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Before, the silence had been shock and fear. Now, it was shame. A young delegate from a species Tay recognized as the Koran stood up. The Koran were known for their honor, their strict code of behavior. They were warriors who believed in fair combat and despised those who attacked the weak. I must speak, the young Koran said. Her voice was clear and strong. What the council did today was wrong. We called humanity here to bully them. We saw a young species, and we tried to crush them before they could grow. That is not justice. That is cowardice. Voices rose in protest, but the Koran continued, and now we learn the truth. Humanity could have destroyed us at any time. They had the power to burn our worlds and take everything we have. But they did not. They chose peace. They chose patience. They are better than we are. She turned to face Tay directly. Her eyes were bright with emotion. Human. I apologize. On behalf of my people, I apologize for what the council has done today. We were wrong to threaten you. We were wrong to doubt you. I hope that someday you can forgive us. Tay bowed his head slightly. There is nothing to forgive. We understand why you acted as you did. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Trust is hard. We do not blame you for being cautious. Other delegates began to stand. Some offered their own apologies. Others asked questions about humanity, about their history, about their hopes for the future. The atmosphere in the chamber shifted again, from shame to curiosity. Speaker Vorin raised his arms for silence. The chamber obeyed. This council has made a serious mistake today, Vorin said. His voice was heavy with the weight of his words. We came here to punish humanity for crimes they did not commit. We came here to show our strength. Instead, we have learned that we are not as strong as we believed. He looked at Tay, and something like respect showed in his alien eyes. Human, I must ask you something. Your ship out there, your Eternal Dawn, it could destroy this station easily. It could kill everyone here in seconds. Why did you not simply do that? Why go through all of this? Tay smiled sadly. Because killing you would not solve anything. It would only create more fear, more hate, more war. We want something different. We want a galaxy where species can live together without fear, where young civilizations can grow without being crushed, where the strong protect the weak instead of destroying them. He spread his hands again. That is the future we are trying to build. Not through war, but through understanding. Not through fear, but through trust. We showed you the Eternal Dawn not to threaten you, but to earn your respect. We hoped that if you saw our true strength, you would be willing to treat us as equals, instead of victims. The Dreth counselor made a sound that might have been a laugh. Clever. Very clever. You knew that power is the only language most of this chamber understands. So you spoke in that language. We hoped you would hear us, Tay said. We hoped you would understand. I understand, the Dreth said. And I think many others here are beginning to understand as well. Humanity is not what we thought. You are something new. Something the galaxy has not seen before. What is that? Someone asked from the crowd. The old Dreth turned to look at them. His orange eyes glowed brighter for a moment. A species that chooses kindness even when they have the power to choose cruelty. A species that builds weapons and then refuses to use them. A species that could rule the galaxy and instead asks only to be our friend. He looked back at Tay. The galaxy does not know what to do with beings like you, but I think we will learn. Given time, I think you will teach us. Tay felt something warm spread through his chest. Hope. After all the years of waiting, all the years of hiding, humanity finally had a chance to be part of something bigger. We have much to teach each other, Tay said. And we have time. All the time in the universe. The emergency meeting lasted 3 hours. Delegates argued, shouted, and debated in ways that the Great Chamber had not seen in centuries. Some wanted to attack humanity immediately, before they grew even stronger. Others wanted to surrender completely, to beg for mercy and hope for the best. But most fell somewhere in the middle, confused and uncertain about what to do. Tay was asked to leave during the discussions. He waited in a small room nearby, drinking water and watching the stars through a window. His body was tired, but his mind was alert. Everything depended on what happened in the next few hours. Commander Hana Lee contacted him through his personal device. Her face appeared on the small screen, calm and professional as always. "Ambassador, we are monitoring communications from the station. The council is divided. There is talk of forming a military alliance against us." Tay nodded. "Expected. What else?" "Some delegates are pushing for immediate peace talks. The Koran and the Dreth are leading that group. They seem to have gained respect for humanity." "Good. The Koran have honor. The Dreth have wisdom. If they support us, others will follow." "What about the Veloxi?" Hana asked. "Speaker Vorin holds a lot of power." Tay thought about the tall blue alien with 4 arms. Vorin had been angry at first, then shocked, then something like respectful. But respect was not the same as trust. The speaker could still decide that humanity was too dangerous to live. "Vorin will do what he thinks is best for his people," Tay said. "We need to show him that peace is better than war." "How do we do that?" Tay smiled slightly. "By being human." An hour later, a guard came to bring Tay back to the chamber. The room was quieter now. Many delegates had left, but the important ones remained. Speaker Vorin stood at the center, his 4 arms folded across his chest. "Human," Vorin said as Tay approached. "The council has discussed your situation. We have reached a decision." Tay waited. His heart beat faster, but his face showed nothing. "We will not go to war with humanity," Vorin continued. "The risk is too great. Your ship out there has made that very clear." Relief washed through Tay's body, but he did not let it show. This was not over yet. "However," Vorin said, "we cannot simply pretend that today did not happen. You revealed that humanity has been lying to us for years. You pretended to be weak while building weapons of terrible power. Many on this council believe you cannot be trusted." Tay took a deep breath. "What would the council have us do?" Vorin looked at him with those strange alien eyes. "Prove yourselves. Show us that you truly want peace. Actions, not words." "What kind of actions?" The old Dreth counselor stepped forward. His dry voice filled the chamber. "There is a crisis in the outer regions," the Dreth said. "A species called the Vanthi is dying. Their sun is failing, growing colder each year. They do not have the technology to move their people to a new world. The council has debated sending aid for decades, but the cost is too high. No one wants to spend their resources saving strangers." Tay understood immediately. "You want humanity to help them?" "Yes," the Dreth said. "Your ship out there, your eternal dawn. It is more powerful than anything we have ever seen. Surely it can help save a dying people. Surely it has the ability to move millions of beings to safety. And if we do this," Tay said slowly, "the council will accept us?" Vorin stepped forward. "If you save the Vanthi, you will prove that humanity uses its power for good. You will show the galaxy that you are not a threat, but a protector. Many who doubt you now will change their minds. It was a test." Tay knew that. The council wanted to see if humans would actually help others without any benefit to themselves. They wanted to see if humanity's talk of peace and friendship was real, or just empty words. Tay thought about the Vanthi. He had never met them. He knew nothing about their culture, their history, their dreams. They were strangers on the far side of the galaxy. Why should humanity risk anything for them? But then he thought about Earth. He thought about all the times in human history when people had helped strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. He thought about the doctors who traveled to distant lands to heal the sick, the workers who rebuilt cities after disasters, The ordinary people who donated their money and time to help those they would never meet. That was who humans were. That was who they had always been. Not perfect, not always good, but capable of incredible kindness when it mattered most. "We will help the Vanthi," Tay said. "Not because you ask us to. Not to prove ourselves to the council, but because they need help, and we can give it." He pulled out his communication device and contacted the Eternal Dawn. "Commander Lee, I have new orders. Set course for the outer regions. We are going to save a species." Hana's voice came back immediately. "Sir, that will take us far from Earth. We will be alone out there." "I know, but this is important. Humanity has spent 200 years preparing for war. Now we have a chance to prepare for something better. Let us take it." There was a pause. Then Hana spoke again, and Tay could hear the pride in her voice. "Yes, sir. Course plotted. We will be ready to leave in 1 hour." Tay put the device away and looked at the council. "The Eternal Dawn will go to the Vanthi homeworld. We will use every resource we have to save them. If possible, we will move their entire population to a new world. If not, we will find another solution. But we will not let them die." The chamber was quiet. Some delegates looked surprised. Others looked skeptical. But a few, a growing few, looked at Tay with something new in their eyes. Admiration. Hope. The young Koran delegate stepped forward. "I will go with you. My ship is small, but my crew is brave. We will help however we can." Another delegate stood. Then another. Within minutes, a dozen species had offered their support. Ships, supplies, workers. The mission to save the Vanthi was growing before Tay's eyes. Speaker Vorin watched it all with an expression Tay could not read. Finally, the tall Veloxy spoke. "It seems humanity has already begun to change the galaxy," Vorin said. "I do not know if that is good or bad, but I will watch with interest." He raised one of his forearms in a gesture that Tay recognized as respect. "Go, human. Save the Vanthi. Show us who you really are." Tay bowed his head. "Thank you, Speaker. When we return, I hope we can talk again. Not as enemies, but as friends." "Perhaps," Vorin said. "Perhaps." Tay turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the galaxy was already changing. The council that had gathered to punish humanity was now sending ships to join their mission. The species that had feared humans were now working beside them. It was a small step, just the beginning. But it was a step in the right direction, and humanity had never been afraid of taking the first step. The journey to the Vanthi homeworld took 3 weeks. The Eternal Dawn could have made it faster. But the other ships in the fleet needed time to keep up. 12 vessels from 8 different species traveled together through the stars, united by a single purpose. Tay spent most of the journey in meetings. He talked with captains, engineers, and diplomats from across the galaxy. They planned, argued, and slowly learned to work together. It was not easy. Centuries of distrust could not disappear in a few weeks, but every day, the walls between them grew a little smaller. Commander Hana Lee managed the practical details. She organized supply chains, coordinated flight paths, and made sure every ship had what it needed. Her efficiency impressed even the skeptical alien commanders. Humans, they were learning, knew how to get things done. When the fleet finally arrived at the Vanthi system, they found a world dying. The planet was gray and cold, covered in ice that grew thicker every year. The Vanthi had built great domes to protect themselves, but the domes were failing. Power ran low. Food grew scarce. Hope had almost disappeared. Tay looked at the planet through the main screen of the Eternal Dawn. Millions of lives hung in the balance down there. Millions of people he had never met, counting on strangers from across the galaxy to save them. "What is our plan?" Hana asked quietly. Tay had been thinking about that for weeks. Moving an entire population was almost impossible. It would take hundreds of ships and years of work. They did not have that kind of time. "We cannot move everyone," Tay said, "but maybe we do not have to move anyone. He turned to the ship's chief engineer, a woman named Su Jin. She was small and quiet, but her mind was extraordinary. She understood the ancient technology better than anyone else in the human fleet. Su Jin, the precursor technology we found. Did any of it deal with stars? Su Jin frowned thoughtfully. There were some records about stellar engineering, ways to affect a star's energy output, but we never tested them. The power requirements are enormous. Could the Eternal Dawn provide that power? The engineer's eyes widened as she understood what Tay was suggesting. You want to restart their sun? That is, I do not know if it is possible. Find out, Tay said. We did not come all this way to fail. The next week was the hardest of Tay's life. Engineers from every ship in the fleet worked together to understand the precursor records. They built devices they barely understood. They calculated formulas that made their heads hurt. And slowly, impossibly, a plan took shape. The Vanthi sun was not truly dying. It was just sick. Something in its core had changed, reducing its heat output. The precursor technology described a way to heal it, to restore its natural fire. It would take all the energy the Eternal Dawn could produce, and it might destroy the ship entirely, but it could work. Tay called a meeting of all the captains. They gathered in the Eternal Dawn's conference room, their faces appearing on screens around the walls. Species that had been enemies for centuries now sat together, united by a common cause. The plan is ready, Tay said. We can save the Vanthi sun. But there is a risk. The Eternal Dawn may not survive the process. Silence filled the room. The alien captains looked at each other, then at Tay. You would sacrifice your greatest ship? The Koran captain asked. The symbol of your power? If that is what it takes, Tay said simply. A ship is just metal and energy. The Vanthi are living beings. Families. Children. They matter more than any ship. The Dreth representative made that dry laughing sound again. Humans continue to surprise me. Most species would never risk so much for strangers. We are not most species, Tay said. Hana stepped forward. Her face was calm, but Tay could see the emotion in her eyes. The Eternal Dawn was her ship, her home. The idea of losing it hurt, but she had not argued against the plan. My crew has voted, Hana said. We agree with Ambassador Kang. If the Eternal Dawn must die to save the Vanthi, then that is what we will do. One by one, the other captains voiced their support. They would help however they could. They would share the risk, share the work, share the glory, or the grief. The operation began the next morning. The Eternal Dawn moved closer to the dying sun, its shields glowing bright against the cold light. Hana commanded the bridge with steady hands and a steady voice. Tay watched from a smaller ship nearby, his heart full of pride and fear. The precursor device activated. Energy poured from the Eternal Dawn into the star. More energy than any species had ever produced. The ship shook. Alarms screamed. Systems failed one by one, but it was working. Deep in the sun's core, something was changing. The cold fire began to warm. The dying light began to brighten. On the surface of the Vanthi world, millions of beings looked up at their sky. They had prayed for salvation, and now they saw it coming. Their sun was healing. Their world was coming back to life. The process took 4 hours. By the end, the Eternal Dawn was barely functional. Its weapons were gone. Its shields were dead. Half its systems had burned out. But it was still there. Still floating in space. Still alive. Hana's voice came through the communication channel, tired but triumphant. Mission complete. The Vanthi sun is stable. It will burn for another 1 billion years. The fleet erupted in cheers. Aliens who had never celebrated together now shouted and cried and embraced. The impossible had happened. They had saved a world. On the Vanthi planet, the ice began to melt. Domes that had been cold for decades grew warm again. Children who had never seen their world without snow watched in wonder as flowers began to bloom. The Vanthi leader contacted the fleet. He was old, his body weak from years of cold and fear. But his voice was strong with emotion. "We do not have words for what you have done," the Vanthi leader said. "You came from across the galaxy to save us. You risked everything for people you had never met. How can we ever repay you?" Tay answered him. "You do not need to repay us. Just remember what happened here today. Remember that strangers came to help when you needed it most. And someday, when another species needs help, remember to do the same." The Vanthi leader was silent for a moment. Then he bowed his head. "We will remember. Our children will remember. For as long as our people exist, we will tell the story of the humans who saved our world." 3 months later, Tay stood before the Galactic Council once again. The great chamber was full, even more crowded than before. Word of what happened in the Vanthi system had spread across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see the humans now. Speaker Vorin called the meeting to order. His 4 arms moved in a gesture of formal welcome. "Ambassador Kang, you have returned." "I have," Tay said. "The Council has watched your actions carefully," Vorin continued. "We have seen what humanity did for the Vanthi. We have heard the stories from every ship in your fleet. We have listened to the gratitude of a species that was dying and now lives." He paused, letting the words settle over the chamber. "The Council has reached a new decision. Humanity is no longer under suspicion. Your species is welcomed as a full member of the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that brings." The chamber erupted in applause. Aliens who had doubted humanity now clapped and cheered. The sound washed over Tay like warm water. But Vorin was not finished. "More than that," the speaker said, raising his arms for silence. "The Council has decided to create something new, a fleet dedicated to helping those in need, regardless of species or politics. A force for rescue, for aid, for hope." He looked at Tay with those strange alien eyes. "We would like humanity to lead this fleet. You have shown us what it means to help strangers. Now teach us how to be more like you." End quote. Tay felt tears forming in his eyes. After 200 years of hiding, after 5 years of being dismissed as weak, humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as threats, but as helpers, as friends, as exactly what they had always wanted to be. He bowed his head to the speaker. "We would be honored," Tay said. "Let us build something better together." And the galaxy, for the first time in its long history, began to believe that peace might actually be possible.